Okay, so basically you follow those 12-factor manifesto rules, and someone's going to tell you, oh, you're building cloud-native apps. What does it really mean? What is a cloud? Well, basically cloud is some servers controlled by the API. Servers well, you don't give names to those servers. You don't put stickers on those servers as you would put on your laptop. And if those servers misbehave, well, you just shoot them down. More and more companies start looking at the cloud as a commodity, right? It's nothing special, it's just a commodity. But there are still some companies that are afraid of going to the cloud, right? They fear things. And what fear leads to, well, is a risk management. And some companies are so good at risk management, actually, that no one wants to work for them anymore. But here's the thing. If you imagine that you have those different microservices, if you will, and you put them on the X, Y axis, and your x-axis is the probability of bad things happening, and the y-axis is the impact of bad things happening. And what I mean by impact is like low impact, I can't display some ad. The medium impact is like, oh, some data was compromised. And the high impact is, well, someone dies. Well, we operate in this bottom left corner, and we can afford to do so many different crazy things. But why do we choose Heroku in particular? Well, a year ago, when we were starting our change initiative, our company was structured as two different silos. There was a development silo and the operations silo. And the communication was through a ticketing system. So basically, you get a ticket, you wait for like 3 weeks, and then you get a server. And it's not like our admin people were malicious or incompetent. They're really, really smart folks. But the system that got created was not contributing to the effective software delivery. And this year, we're trying to build this DevOps culture. It's changing, and it's important. DevOps, is, in my mind, is a culture. It's like development people and operations people talking to each other. It's not a job title. It's not some tools. It's just communication. But going back to our story, so a year ago, we were like 3-4 developers, and we wanted to deliver really, really quickly. And we didn't have time to wait for like 3 weeks to get a server. So we said, OK, let's outsource our infrastructure to the cloud, and let's use Heroku. And basically, the way we look at Heroku is like, oh, it's our team that we communicate with over the API. And because they have a very, very good API, we don't need to talk to them directly. And if you ask me like 2 months ago, why does your software fit into this platform as a service model, I'll tell you, oh, probably because we designed it this way, right? Because we are so smart that we design software that works on platform as a service. But nowadays, I think it's the other way around. Just because we use Heroku from day one, we use platform as a service from day one, it forces us to use this 12-factor approach. And someone may ask, are you guys afraid of being actually stuck on the Heroku platform? Well, some time ago, I ran the experiment, and I ported one of our apps from Heroku to OpenShift, which is a platform as a service provider that you can actually run on your own infrastructure. And it took me like 3 hours, and the only change I had to make in our code base was one environment variable. Okay, so again, it's all about reversible decisions, and following 12-factor approach. Well, you can easily move your software to different cloud providers. Now, what does our production setup look like? Well, our users are mostly in Norway. And our backends are running in Europe, in Ireland, and in the US. But here's the thing. When it comes to mobile web apps, number one constraint, number one bottleneck is not your bandwidth, it's the latency. How long does the signal need to travel from the backend server to the end user device? So basically what we're trying to do is to move the content as close to the end users as possible. That's why we're running our own Varnish proxy in Norway, and this Varnish proxy is pointing to our backends in Europe and in the US. This holy grail of continuous delivery, which is the ability to have self-service environments. And if you want to create like a new app on Heroku, it's actually easier than setting up a new Facebook profile. And finally, developers can control a technology rather than to use a technology that controls them. So how easy it is to create a new app on Heroku? Well, it's just a simple form where you put the app name, the region where your app should run, and you just click a button. That's simple. If you want to add some additional service like a monitoring or logging service, well, it's only one click away from you. But here's the thing, when you have like 20, 30 different services, well, this constant clicking becomes boring. And what is more, you can't really control how your setup changes over time when you only click at the buttons. So there is this tool called Terraform that actually allows you to describe your Heroku infrastructure as a code. So what does it look like in practice? Well, you have a text file that you can keep in your version control system, and you specify something like a resource name, the region where it should run. So it's exactly the same stuff we've seen on the UI form before. And then if this app needs to use something like a logging service, well, you just put it in the file. If it needs like a monitoring service, like Librato, for example, well, again, you put it in this file. And it's actually a brilliant idea. However, from my experience, this tool isn't polished yet, and I wouldn't recommend it to use it in production yet. But watch out for what's happening in that space. And I'm aware that at some point we may actually outgrow Heroku, and maybe like money will become a limiting factor. Maybe it's going to be too expensive, or maybe we're going to need like more customization. Who knows? But what I can say is we are ready for a migration to another cloud provider anytime we want.